magic happen with all the overlays and stuff that is around me in cyberspace. We're happy to have you guys joining us here to get you ready for an excellent slate of WNBA games, as well as talk about these playoff races that are taking shape as the season winds down. It seems impossible that the season is winding down because it's both taken forever and gone by in the blink of an eye. So Calvin, how you doing?
Gabe, I'm good. It's great to be with you.
It's hectic. It's been a crazy season, and we're getting towards the end. But there's always time to crack open a beer. This is a Port City. What is this? German Pilsner. Port City, not a sponsor, but a good beer company out here in Alexandria, Virginia. So I'll take a sip, and we will get off and running.
Could become a sponsor if anyone from there is listening.
If Port City wants to send me beer, I will drink it in whatever shape or fashion you want to have me do that. Always drink responsibly, everyone out there. But considering you're in your house and you're probably over 21, you probably aren't drinking responsibly. So let's start with the slate of games today. At 4 p.m., we have the Connecticut Sun as a 6.5-point favorite over the Indiana Fever. You can catch that game on Facebook and League Pass. Then at 6 p.m., we have the Las Vegas Aces versus the Atlanta Dream. The Aces are a 10.5-point favorite in that game. And then at 8 p.m., the nightcap is the New York Liberty against the red-hot Phoenix Mercury, who are a 12.5-point favorite. You can catch that game on Twitter and League Pass. So, Calvin, which one of those games do you want to talk about first? All of them are kind of interesting, but as the spreads suggest, there's kind of a talent gap between all of these teams.
Yeah, let's just go chronologically and start with the Sun and the Fever to open things off. I think it's a big game for the Fever,
yes,
in particular, if they want to have a chance to make the playoffs. Right now, they're 1.5 back. They're kind of in that big tie, sitting. Everyone between 8th and the Liberty is all tied for 9th. So if they want to come out of that group and catch the wings, they really need to win this afternoon.
And this is going to be a tough one. I mean, the Connecticut Sun are, after a very shaky start to the season, they have been very strong, I'd say. I think they are playing well so far. They are 7th in net rating, just below the zero marks are negative 0.7, offensive rating of 98.7, defensive rating of 99.4, which is very, very good. But I think the place to start, the place to start with them is Jasmine Thomas is probable today. She missed the last 2 games with plantar fasciitis. She seems like she is going to play. Alyssa Thomas will play after missing the last game. So healthy Connecticut team. Lauren Cox is out with a left knee injury for the Indiana Fever. And Fever have kind of been struggling here as of late. Who do you think the Fever have enough offensive juice to get by this really tough Connecticut defense? Because that's really the only way they win games is when, obviously, you always win a game when you outscore someone. But you understand what I'm saying when I say they win by outscoring people. They're not stopping a ton of people.
Yeah. To answer your question, no, I don't. Especially not with the Thomases in Atlanta. You brought up net rating. Actually, the Fever, ever since that game where they beat the Storm and felt like they're on the top of the world, are last in net rating. They're behind the Liberty. And it's really not actually close. They're minus 18. That's points per 100 possessions. Liberty are minus 11. No one else is below minus 10. So they really, I don't know what the phrase is. Kind of started resting on their laurels. That win made their season, and they just haven't been able to do anything. They really even haven't been that good on offense since then, to be honest with you. And obviously not having Lauren Cox tonight is going to be a little bit tough. But she and Tierra McCowan haven't found that rhythm to play together anyway. And Tierra McCowan, we've talked about her inconsistency. She's great one night and not the next night. So I don't think the Fever. Are we going to make our picks against the spread?
Yeah, let's make a pick here.
You said 6.5.
It's 6.5 for Connecticut.
So I'm going to go with the Sun covering.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Sun covering too. I mean, I'm just with you. Like, I don't know if we did it here or I've done it in a couple different places where I kind of just like roasted Marianne Stanley for saying, "Oh, shame on everybody for not believing in us. You guys were wrong. We have 8 players that have a ton of heart, and that's why we're gonna win." And it's like, relax, Marianne. Like, you guys don't play any defense whatsoever. So I'm not, you guys are tough. You have some hope in the future, but right now I just think, this team is not ready to win. And I think it's just such a mess with what they're doing in terms of their lineups. Natalie Tron was starting, Candice Dupree is starting. Starting those two of Kelsey Mitchell is going to mean you have a bad defense. And then Tierra McCowan's been kind of up and down. I still think she should be the starter, though, because guess what? Even if you make the playoffs this year, you're just going to get beat in the first round. And we'll get into the 8 seed, and I think there actually is interesting teams that can make some noise in the playoffs in that 8 seed. I don't think Indiana's one of them. So I'm going with Connecticut in that game. Let's move over to the 6 p.m. game, Las Vegas versus Atlanta. As I mentioned, 10.5-point favorites for the Aces. That game's on Facebook and League Pass, which I don't think I mentioned earlier. So this is a huge game kind of for both teams. And we'll get into all the playoff races in more detail a little later in the show. But the Vegas is trying for that 1 seed, or at least just hold on to a 2 seed to get the double bye into the semifinals. And then the Dream are fighting for that 8 seed. And Kennedy Carter's back for Atlanta. They've looked pretty good since she came back. And I think that the Dream, they kind of have some juice now. And they're kind of looking like the team that we wanted to see throughout this season. Do you agree with that, or is it just kind of me being rosier now on them?
No, you're right. Since Kennedy Carter has returned, they've definitely picked it up a notch. I think they were kind of a clear 11 for a while. I think the last time we did one of these, were they 2-12, 2-13? They were 1 game ahead of the Liberty. They've moved themselves into that tie for 9th. There's kind of a theme here, though. We just got done talking about the Fever teams who can score with anyone and don't guard anyone. And the Dream are another one of those teams. They have offensive weapons all over the place. Obviously, Kennedy Carter, Benijah Laney has been a breakout star this year. Monique Billings, Courtney Williams can go get a bucket anywhere. But they just don't. It doesn't work on defense. And the Aces, like you said, they really can't afford to let a game like this slip by them if they want to get the 1 seed or even the 2 seed. When they're scheduled down the stretch, they finish up with the Sparks and the Storm. So they're really going to have to, this would be a huge opportunity missed for them.
They got to beat someone who's better than them. To get into the playoffs, they're going to have to beat someone who's better than them. So yeah, this is a chance to do it. I'd say that this is a pretty tall task against a really good Aces team. My concern here for the Dream is just, the Aces can kind of lock down. They can lock down anybody. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league. So I think if you're relying on kind of static one-on-one scoring like the Dream do, you're going to run into a lot of problems against the Aces. So I'm just not sure anything short of just really hot 3-point shooting is going to get them this W. And I'm interested to see how they match up, because who's going to cover Asia? Do you put Monique Billings on her because she's been starting at the 4? Laney doesn't have the size there. Elizabeth Williams would have the size, but you're going to need her to cover Carolyn Swords, who is starting, unfortunately, still. So I'm interested in the matchups because I like Billings, but I just don't think she can. Not that anyone can stop Asia Wilson, but I don't think she can contain Asia Wilson either.
Well, I'm sure they're going to double her. I also, would like to see Glory Johnson play next to Elizabeth Williams a little bit.
I like that.
Allow Glory Johnson, to play the 4 and be able to not necessarily stop Asia, but probably have the best shot of anyone we've mentioned one-on-one. But yeah, like you said, the Dream, they do have a lot of good one-on-one scorers. The Aces have a lot of good one-on-one defenders. So it's a really bad matchup for them.
And I just think the Dream's offense has been, they've been better this year than they were last year, but I just don't really believe in what they're doing, because it just kind of seems so static and just not flowing. And I think they have the talent to do that. And it has gotten better. They had to deal with a ton of injuries. It has gotten better. But let's make a pick here. For everything I just said, I know it's pretty negative on the Dream. I think they're going to cover 10.5 points. I think they'll lose by 10 or less.
I'm going to go with, I'm actually going to agree with you on that one too. 10.5 is a pretty big point spread.
Yeah, it is a lot.
For a team that's got the shooters like the Dream have, if some of those shots go in, they're going to be there at the end of the game. They're not going to win the game, but they're going to be within 7, 8, 9. Have to play the foul game at the end, I think.
Hey, as we have seen in the last 2 weeks of basketball, anything can happen. Like the Miami Heat are showing in the NBA playoffs by taking a 3-0 lead on the 1-seed Milwaukee Bucks. We made it 12 minutes into the show without me mentioning the Miami Heat.
I was about to mark down 2:12, 3:12 your time.
Yeah, I made it a whole 12 minutes. And I won't dive into Bam Adebayo quite yet, but that may end up coming, depending on how many beers I can have in this short time that we were doing the Her Hoop stats happy hour. Really happy for anyone who's joining us on Twitter and YouTube. We appreciate you guys. If you guys want to leave a comment, let us know what to talk about. Let us know what you guys want to hear about. We are all ears, and we are hopefully entertaining you before the games, because there's no other WNBA pregame show that I know of. So,
and if anyone doesn't know where Gabe is from, now you know.
Yeah, I'm from Miami. And luckily this year, no one will have to hear too much about college football. But we'll see. We'll see. At 8 p.m., the New York Liberty take on the Phoenix Mercury, who are 12.5-point favorites. That's on Twitter and League Pass, as I mentioned. Sophie Cunningham is questionable with the hip injury. Nia Coffey is probable with the hand injury, but last game she was available. She did not play, and the Phoenix had to play with 7 players. As I wrote about for Winsider earlier this week, that does not matter. They have been absolutely stunning since Brittany Griner went down, since Bria Hartley went down. Diana Taurasi has just said, I'm going to do everything I want to do. Skylar Diggins-Smith has said the same thing. And Brandon Turner has turned into one of the best centers in the league. So it's been really encouraging for them. Kylie Shook is out for New York with a left ankle sprain. So New York is going to be down one of their better rookies this year in a very tough season for them. We will not be talking about New York in the playoff races preview because they're pretty much out of it. Although not fully somehow, but still, regardless, if they lose this game, I believe they will be eliminated from playoff contention. Does Phoenix have the juice to kind of keep their run going? I've been really impressed with them, obviously, because I wrote about them. But I just, I don't know what it is. I mean, they have hot 3-point shooting, and I guess that may not continue, but they're also getting open looks, and it's just Diana Taurasi saying, hey, this is me.
Yeah. First off, that article Gabe mentioned, anyone who's listening, definitely go read that article. It's good stuff, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but the intro is phenomenal. It is hooked me right from the start. Just going to leave you dangling with that. So go read the intro, read the whole article. Great breakdown of why the Mercury
has to do with Dr. Pepper.
Little tease for you. So yeah, break down why the Mercury are somehow playing so much better without Brittany Griner, without Bria Hartley, who was having a career year. We'll talk about them more, I'm sure, later. We have a lot to get into with them when we get to the race for the 4 seed. But in terms of this game, I do think it would be funny. It would make just as much sense as the Mercury going on this kind of run as soon as they lose Griner and Hartley, would be the Liberty hanging with the Mercury. That would make about the same amount of sense. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think the Mercury's run is going to continue tonight. We'll see how long it lasts into the playoffs. They're going to have to play a single elimination game because they're not obviously going to get up to the 2 seed. But what do you say, 12.5?
They're 12.5-point favorites, yes.
I'm going to go with the Mercury to cover that.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go against. I think, I don't know. You can't choose this, right? But I think if you're the Mercury, you're like, if we had to have a bad shooting game, right, after having all this string of amazing shooting games, this is the one. Because we can still win this game with 7 or 8 players No shade. Well, shade to the New York Liberty. You could take it however you want. I don't really care. You've won 2 games this season. You you can have a bad shooting game and still beat the New York Liberty. So I don't know. Sometimes basketball works out in that you can kind of just let it happen. So I'm going to go with the Liberty to cover 12.5 points because I think there's what I like to call the LRO factor, the luck run out factor for Phoenix. And if you're Phoenix, you kind of want your luck to run out in this game so you can just win this one at the end. But I think it'll be a little close. And New York's been feisty. I don't want to give them. They've been feisty lately. They've been feisty all year. They've given a crap, which is more than I could say about a lot of other bad teams across sports generally. So they care, and I think they're gonna fight. And I think they will get into a good situation to cover. Just as a note, no one can clinch the playoffs today. I think Connecticut can get closer with a win. Connecticut wins 2 more games. They'll be in. Las Vegas is already in. Phoenix is already in. And I don't know about New York. I think if New York loses this game, they're out. But functionally, they're out anyways. Okay, let's get into our main topic here for this WNBA happy hour on the Her Hoops Stats network, Twitter, YouTube, whatever. You know, the internet's a weird place. But we're going to talk about the playoff races. There are 3 distinct groups here in the WNBA playoff race. If you're not familiar with how the WNBA playoffs are structured, there's 2 single elimination rounds, and then the semifinals, which is a 5-game series, followed by the finals, which is also a 5-game series. So the last 4 playoff teams, the last 4 playoff teams, so 5, 6, 7, and 8, all play in the first round of elimination games. Then the 3rd and 4th seeds get a bye to the second elimination round. Then the 1 and 2 seeds get a bye to the semifinals and have to play series rather than a single elimination, which, as you can imagine, is a huge help to getting to the finals. I'm pretty sure that I know this. No team has ever gone from the first single elimination round to the finals. I don't think any single elimination teams generally have gone from single elimination to the finals. Obviously, it has to do with the quality of teams, but it's also really hard to get there. It's a tough task. This year will be a little different without travel. But let's start with the race at the top. Let's start the race at the top, and then we'll go through the bottom. So we have the race for the 1 seed and the double bye, the race for the 4 seed, and the race for the 8 seed to get into the playoffs. And we're going to do them in that order. So the race for the top seed really boils down to Seattle, who's sitting at 15-3, Las Vegas, who's sitting at 13-4, Los Angeles, who's sitting at 13-5, and improbably the Minnesota Lynx, who are also sitting at 13-5. Let's start at the top with Seattle. And I think it's important that Seattle holds on to the 1 seed for a couple different reasons. They've been the 1 seed all season. They've been the team to beat all year long. I think when you're that team, you got to hold on to it for the entire year to have that confidence going into the playoffs. Secondly, I don't want to have to play either of the other 2 teams. Like, I don't want to have to play Las Vegas or Los Angeles in that next round because if everything goes chalk, the 4 seed will play the 1 seed in the semifinals. I don't think I want to play either Las Vegas or Los Angeles, who are looking to be the 2 and 3 seed. So I want to stick to that 1 seed. So it's really important for them to get that huge win last night, as I'm sure everyone watching this saw, the Jewel Lloyd's buzzer-beating shot from the corner where her foot was in bounds, guys. It wasn't bounds. The adjudication matters. They said it was in bounds, therefore it's in bounds. So they win. They keep that 1.5 game hold on the top seed. Do you think they hold on to it for the rest of the year?
I do. I think that shot was gigantic. You said 1.5. They'd be up half a game without that shot. They still have to play the Aces.
Yep.
They still, I believe, have to play the Lynx, if I'm correct.
Oh yeah. Wait. No. I should say the remaining schedule for the Seattle Storm.
Yeah. Do we have the Storm remaining schedule?
I do. I have it. I don't know. Yeah. I think we also have a graphic. Thanks to Shay Jennings, who's in the back clicking the buttons, making everything happen.
Yeah. Shout out to Shay. Everything that comes on screen is all Shay.
So they have on Sunday, tomorrow, they play Minnesota, a massive game, truly massive game. Wednesday, they play Dallas. Friday, they play Phoenix. And then next Sunday, in a makeup game from the Day of Reflection that WNBA took last week. Was that last week? Yes, that was last week. Vegas, they play Las Vegas in that last game of the season, which may or may not be important depending on how these next 3 games go. But certainly tomorrow's game against Minnesota is wildly important.
Yeah, that is a tough schedule down the stretch, honestly. Those are all playoff teams. This is not the time you want to be playing Phoenix. Minnesota, you mentioned Gabe. I think you gave a little bit too much disrespect to the Lynx. I'm just going to be honest. I
had it written down before the last couple games, to be honest. So for what it's worth.
Yeah, we'll go with that. The idea that you want to avoid the 2 seeds so that you don't have to play either the Aces or the Sparks. I don't know if you want to play the Lynx if they get Sylvia Fowles back in the playoffs. And I don't know that getting the 4 seed means you're going to play the Lynx, because I don't know that the Lynx are going to get the 4 seed. Especially if the Lynx beat the Storm tomorrow, I think they might actually be in the driver's seat for a 2 seed. They have to win that game, definitely. They still have an outside shot. There's a path for the Lynx to get the 1 seed here. They obviously have to win that game. It would have been much, much more likely if Jewell Loyd's shot did not go down last time. I told, we talked before off air, before that shot went in, I was ready to come on here today and say that I think the Lynx might actually get the 1 seed. And then Jewell Loyd crushed that dream. But there's still a path there. It's narrow, but there's a path. I think that the Storm will win tomorrow against the Lynx, which will end any hope the Lynx have of the 1 seed. And I think the Storm will end up holding on to that number 1 spot. I don't think they're going to go, what do they have, 4 games left? They have tomorrow, Phoenix, Dallas, and Las Vegas. I don't think they're going to go 4-0. But because they won last night, they really only need to go 3-1 in order to hold on to that top spot.
Well, it all depends on what the other teams here do. As we mentioned, a lot. We'll go through the remaining schedule of all these teams, actually. Let's just do that now. Las Vegas has Atlanta today, Indiana, Minnesota. On Minnesota's next Thursday. On next Saturday, they play LA, and then they have a back-to-back on Sunday against Seattle.
That's the hardest last 4 days you can possibly have. 3 games in 4 days against the 3 other teams that you were competing with for those top 4 spots.
Yep. And, so Las Vegas absolutely needs to win today. They need to beat Indiana on Tuesday. And then they got to win at least one of those last 3, probably 2 of them, honestly, the way everyone else is playing.
Which is another reason why the Lynx have a path to the
of course
to the 1 seed. The Lynx, the Aces could very easily drop 2 games in the last 2 days or 2 games in the last 4 days, which opens up the door for someone like the Lynx.
Yeah, I think, the problem with that, though, is Los Angeles' schedule is fairly easy. So tomorrow they play Chicago. We'll get into Chicago. They've had injuries. They've had departures. They're not the team that we expect them to be at the beginning of the season, and they're kind of working to adjust to those situations, let's say. Then they play on Tuesday. They have New York. On Thursday, they have Washington. On Saturday, they play Las Vegas. That's next Saturday. So that's a little bit easier schedule because you're probably going to beat New York, and you should beat Washington. Although Washington, championship pedigree team trying to make playoffs, it's not a gimme, but I do think they can, they can pull. They should be able to pull those games out. For Minnesota, it's Seattle tomorrow, Tuesday, Washington, Thursday, Las Vegas, Saturday, Indiana. I'd expect them to win at least 2 of those games. So I don't know. Maybe I'm too conservative here, but I just think it's going to end up the way it is right now. So, because I just think Seattle, they have a tough schedule, but they're also the best team. Las Vegas and Los Angeles could flip. But in that scenario, it matters because of the single bye and not the double bye to the playoffs. But, I also think that both those teams are really good, and I'd expect them to be in the semifinals in either of those machinations. And Minnesota is lacking Sylvia Fowles. I'm not sure what's up with Sylvia Fowles. I mean, obviously it's a calf injury. We know what injury it is, but we don't know where she is, if she's planning to come back. We don't know any of that. So
The last that I saw was a tweet a couple days ago from, I forget which reporter, that basically Cheryl Reeve was being vague, as you would expect, but said that she is hoping that they can have Sylvia Fowles ready for the playoffs.
Okay, good. Then I think that makes a lot of sense. If they're just resting her for them. Man, soft tissue though. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you get older and those things start to happen. Like currently my back hurts.
That's more motivation for the Lynx though, to get the 2 seed if they can. And the other reason that they have that path, obviously they play the Aces in the Storm. If they can go 2-0 in those games, they gain a game in the standings on 2 of the teams ahead of them. If they get that 2 seed, that's an extra. I don't know what the playoff schedule is going to look like. I assume it's going to be an every other day type of thing, which is often what it is, even when there's not a pandemic. If that's the case, that gives them an extra 2 days off, for Sylvia Fowles to rest a little bit longer if you get that 2 seed versus the 3 or 4. So that's extra motivation for them too as well, for anyone really, with the way this season is going.
So if we're right, let's say we're right, and Seattle, because I'm with you. I don't know if I said that. Seattle, I think, is going to hold on to the 1 seed. First and foremost, because I think they're the best team in the league. If you're Seattle, how would you want this to shake out? Would you want, I guess you're picking your first opponent in the team are going to play in the semifinals. If that's assuming everything goes chalk, which it doesn't always go chalk. Assuming everything goes chalk, you're picking your first round opponent from this group of teams in the semifinals. So do you want to play Minnesota? Do you want to play Los Angeles? Because Los Angeles just gave you a bunch of fits last night. Do you want to play Vegas, who, you've beaten in the past and you've looked good against them? I'd say you probably look better against Las Vegas than you did against Los Angeles. Or do you want to play Minnesota, the team who, maybe they don't have the all the talent across the board of those other 2 teams, but they got Cheryl Reeve. And, that's probably the best coach in this bunch. No shade to anybody else, but she's probably the best coach in this bunch. So who would you rather play? How would you want this to shake out if you're Seattle?
Yeah, well, obviously you want upsets, but like you said, if we go chalk and you get to pick one of those 3 teams, you definitely don't want the Aces. You and I have both talked about on this show how we think the Aces will be better in the playoffs. They play their starters far fewer minutes than anyone else in the league, 22 minutes a game.
Wow.
They're gonna be not rested per se, but less beat up than everyone else. Right. And they're just more talented. They're better too. I think the Sparks on paper are the team that you don't want to play. But like you said, Cheryl Reeve versus Derek Fisher, it's really not a competition. It's Reeve Timber right now.
Yeah.
I don't want to play the Lynx, especially if Sylvia Fowles comes back. And if you're the Storm, the way you play defense is not necessarily conducive to guarding someone like Sylvia Fowles, who bullies you around the basket.
Why is it not conducive? Yeah. Could you explain?
Because when you start with, they can obviously bring Mercedes Russell off the bench. They can bring, Ezzy Magbor has some size. She's still raw. She's 20 years old. Brianna Stewart and Natasha Howard are not bangers in the post. They can hold their own, but they are much better at, getting in passing lanes, switching ball screen defense, trapping ball screens, than they are preventing someone from getting really deep position on them. Someone who has a size advantage, a girth advantage on both of them. And that's what they love to do. That's what the Lynx love to do when Sylvia Fowles is on the court. They don't mess around, try any sort of finesse stuff. They just bully you, go right down into the block, get the deepest position possible, and get easy finishes, easy duck-ins. And also rebounding. We've talked before about how the Storm last time, I don't know what the numbers are right now. I don't know if you haven't pulled them up. Last time we were on here, they were 11th on both sides of the ball in rebounding percentage. Defensive rebounding in particular, being that low is going to be tough against a team like Minnesota, especially with Fowles back on the court, who is relentless in crashing the boards. When you put Fowles next to Collier and then you bring in Dantas, and it's a whole team philosophy. Cheryl Reeve does it every year. Even as the game kind of shifts to more of a perimeter-oriented game, more of a get back in transition defense, sort of game, Cheryl Reeve is still very much a go after the offensive glass. Has that kind of philosophy in the Lynx. I think they lead the league in offensive rebounding. They're always up there. So I think that could be a tough matchup. I don't think if you're the Storm, you want to play the Lynx. I think you want to play the Sparks and make them prove that they can outperform what they did last year in the playoffs. Last year, Derek Fisher's 1 year in the playoffs was not good, to say the least. So
it was a complete and abject, total disaster, a catastrophe on the scale of which we have rarely seen in basketball. That's what I would say about Derek Fisher's last playoff as the head coach of the Los Angeles Sparks.
So if you're the Storm, you want to play that and make them prove that they can be better than that, because that's all you've seen from them in the playoffs under Derek Fisher so far. That's where I'm at.
Froze? Did I freeze?
You did, I think.
Okay, I froze, but I'm back, baby. Virtual reality. It says my internet connection is unstable. Great. Well, let's have some fun, folks.
Welcome to the Sparks in the playoffs.
It is exactly, Derek Fisher's cutting the cords right now as I'm criticizing him. But to be clear, he has done a really good job this season. I believe that he can be a solid coach, and it's pretty easy to coach the talent that you got. I think they did a pretty good job last night. I think he got some criticism about not purposely missing the foul shot with 0.8 seconds left that allowed Seattle to get that inbound play. But I don't know, man.
I'm never a fan of that. I don't know what you think.
You play, to quote Herm Edwards, you play to win the game. You play to score points. Like, you go and you do it. Make the shot. If you miss it, then fine. Then maybe there's some ancillary benefit. But if you try to miss, I don't know, that angers the basketball gods to me.
And if you make it, you can set up your defense. Obviously, they didn't succeed in this. But in theory, you should be setting up your defense if you make that shot to switch everything and guard the perimeter. And you know what? Worst case scenario, if they get a lob towards the rim and get a tip in, great. Play for overtime. You live to see another day. If you miss the shot, any shot beats you. You're only up one.
I totally agree. That's my point is then any shot beats you. And you're relying on the clock person, the timekeeper, to hit the button on time, which, as we have seen throughout basketball history, in particular, in regards to Derek Fisher, his most famous shot happened because the timekeeper did not start the time on time when he was with the Los Angeles Lakers. You don't want to rely on that. Just make the shot, and then if they beat you with the three-pointer that comes off of a great Jewel Lloyd reception where she almost had her heel on the out-of-bounds line, you got to live with it. So I don't know. I didn't agree with that criticism too much, but he didn't get criticized for that. I think he has done a good job, though. I think they've looked pretty good.
I think he did a good job last regular season, too, to be fair. I don't think coming into 2019, anyone had the Sparks as the 3 seed. I think he exceeded expectations in his first year up into the playoffs where everything fell apart.
Yeah, and they played a really good team, too. You got to give it to that Connecticut team who, man, they just give you fits. That Connecticut team last year with Courtney Williams and Jasmine Thomas and Jonquel Jones, and not only does that team give you fits physically from a basketball perspective, but from a mental perspective, those teams beat you up by talking, by hitting you, by bumping you. It's incredible. That team was last year. So yeah, I'm in agreement. I think Los Angeles is good, though. As we just talked about, I think Minnesota is really good. Las Vegas clearly, to me, has been the second best team all year. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll get the 2 seed. To me, they've been the team that I would say has been the second best team. I think that's, as we'll get into in an award show in the future, that's why I think A'ja Wilson deserves the MVP. But man, their defense is so tough, and I just don't want to play them. I don't want to play them at all. That as a team, to me, if I can avoid playing them, I don't want to, because they're going to beat the hell out of you. And maybe in a final series, you can try to scheme away from what they do, but they got a championship level coach. They got one of the best players in the league. They have a bunch of smart perimeter defenders. So that's the team, to me, that I don't want to see out of this group, because I'd love Minnesota, but they don't necessarily have the talent that Las Vegas does, with Angel McCoughtry and A'ja Wilson. So, and like you mentioned, Angel hasn't been playing a ton of minutes this year. When it comes playoff time, Angel's going to play because she's a legend in the playoffs. So I would not want to play Las Vegas. All right. Do you want to move on to the 4 seed?
Let's do it.
All right, we're gonna move on to the 4 seed. Before we do that, you guys should go check out the new Her Hoop Stats website. It's fantastically redesigned, bunch of different things to kind of gather advanced stats into one page. You can do Lobo's Look to compare teams that are playing each other. Tonight, we could have done it for any of the teams that are playing, any team, anytime, really, like if we want to really get into the numbers, even though we don't really have time on this show in particular to do that. It's a great website, and I know the crack team at Her Hoop Stats has put together a really nice website. And I think you guys should go check it out because for me, like, maybe it's just like a writer thing. Like I have to go to like 4 million different websites to write anything about the WNBA, and it's very annoying. All of that is kind of put into one place, and there's also certain advanced stats that I don't really see anywhere else. Like they have PER for every player in the league. They have a ton of stuff. So go check that out.
With you when I write articles, I have the article, like Google Doc, and then I have like 8 tabs of things that pertain to what I'm writing about. So definitely shout out to all the programmers, Aaron, Morgan, everyone who's been working real hard on that. Gabe, I also did want to say actually one thing before we move on from the 2 seed. You mentioned, just want to throw this stat out there. You mentioned how teams that have to play in those single elimination games have had such little success since we shifted to that format. So in 2016, our first year of this format, since then, the 4 finals have been 1 versus 2, 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, and 1 versus 2. The 3 seed was the Mystics in 2018. They got swept. So we have yet to see anyone other than a top 2 seed win a finals game under this new format.
Wow.
So if that doesn't tell you how important it is to get that 2 seed versus that 3 or 4, if you're the Aces, the Sparks, the Lynx fighting it out for that bye, I don't know what does.
No, that's a really tough stat. And to be fair, and like that Mystics team was really good too, but they got injured, and that kind of, you don't want to have to play an extra game. Not that Landeldon got injured in that first game, but it all adds up. And I think last year the Mystics really, really talked about getting that 1 seed and getting that double bye and not having to deal with it. And that was huge for them in their finals run. So I do think that might change this year. I think just like the top 4 teams this year, actually that's all biased though, because like look, going into last year's semifinals, I think I picked Los Angeles to beat Connecticut in that semifinal series. So maybe I'm just looking back at it differently, but I just think this year's top 4 teams are a little bit closer bunch, especially with Seattle kind of hitting a rut here near the end of the season.
They are definitely closer together. And the other point, I know Aaron wanted us to talk about this a little bit, is home court.
Oh yeah.
Home court, baby. Probably not what it is in a normal year. Obviously, there's not a literal home court. I do think we've looked at the numbers, and there is some sort of psychological advantage to having the pseudo home court. Home teams have won still, I think it was 56% of their games this year. I think there's something to it, but not very much. It's maybe 52-48. It's the road teams are going to have, less of a disadvantage, the road teams, I should say, than they would have in previous years. So you very well might see a 3 or 4 seed get into the finals and win a finals game this year. The counterpoint, though, is that this year, even more so than other years, has with, you hear every game, the announcer says something about the grind of the season every other day, right? Everyone's getting beat up so much more than they usually do because of how often these teams are playing. So that rest, that extra couple days off from getting a single bye or getting a double bye, is going to be even more crucial this year, just in terms of having your bodies ready, than it would be in other years. So there's both sides of the coin. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to put anything into that home court thing because that a similar phenomenon was happening in the NBA. And then once the playoffs came, they kind of just went away. As you saw in the Miami Heat series against the Milwaukee Bucks, and Heat were able to win the first 2 games. We made it 30 minutes in between Miami Heat references on this program, everybody. Be excited.
29, Gabe.
29 minutes. 29 minutes in between Heat references on this here program talking about the WNBA. But I'm with you. I think home court. I think really what matters though is like there's not travel, so we're gonna get. To me, the basketball this year has been a little up and down, but the really good games have been of a higher quality than it was last year, just because teams aren't traveling as much. There's, as you've gotten used to living in the bubble, you've started to see teams playing better. I think you've especially seen that in Phoenix, who we're going to talk about right now. Let's call it transition, everybody, for the battle for the 4 seed. So the battle for the 4 seed is going to be an interesting discussion because we just kind of talked about Minnesota and Los Angeles and Las Vegas, and any of those teams could be the 4 seed and get that first round bye, which, as Calvin's been saying, is huge. However, there are 2 teams lurking behind them that could catch up to any of those teams should they falter here over the last week of the season. Chicago's at 11-8. Their remaining schedule, they play Los Angeles tomorrow. On Wednesday, they play Atlanta. On Friday, they play Dallas. It's a pretty favorable schedule outside of the LA game, but they're going to have to win that LA game to get anywhere. And then Phoenix, their remaining schedule, as we talked about at the top of the show, they'll be playing New York today. Then on Monday, they have Connecticut. Then they play Connecticut again on Wednesday. And then on Friday, they play Seattle. So a little bit tougher schedule there. I have put Connecticut here just because they're way too far back to get the 4 seed. They could overtake either of these 2 teams in terms of the 5 or 6 seed, but then they're all playing in the first weekend anyways. So it's not a huge difference. So Connecticut's basically on an island, and good for them. We hope they win games and look good heading into the playoffs. And I don't want to diminish their playoff chances, but let's focus in here on Chicago and Phoenix. So Chicago obviously rocked by the news that Azrae Stevens, it's called like an orthochondral defect in her knee. It sounds bad. We hope that she's okay, and we hope that's just like a more normal basketball injury than what we were thinking about. And then Phoenix, as we mentioned, also rocked by injuries, but seemingly completely fine outside of them. And Azrae Stevens, actually, Diamond DeShields left the bubble for personal reasons and is not expected to return. Similarly for Phoenix, it's looking like Brittany Griner is not going to come back after she left the bubble for personal reasons, and Bria Hartley had a torn ACL. So similar situations for these teams, but one is reacting to it very different than the other. If you had to pick either of these teams to sneak into that 4 seed and get a bye, which one are you picking?
Well, definitely Phoenix. I don't think either one of them are going to. The Lynx are too good, and the Lynx have enough of a cushion. They're not catching the Lynx as hot as Phoenix is, but as a Sky fan, I've kind of given up on the Sky. Just put it out there. I apologize to my fellow Sky fans. Maybe I'm too much of a cynic on my own team, but it's not their fault. They've dealt with a lot. Even before Azrae Stevens left, Cheyenne Parker missed a couple games. Stephanie Dolson missed several games before that. They never really got to have those 3 together in the front court. I'm not sure if they played a single game with all 3 of them. Certainly not for any amount of length of time. Mm-hmm. Even when before Diamond DeShields left, we never really saw full Diamond DeShields, the all-star that we saw last year. They have a good starting 5 still. Kalia Copper has been excellent this year. Dolson and Parker are now healthy and in the starting line. They don't have depth anymore. Sloot is an MVP candidate. Allie Quigley is still being Allie Quigley, knocking down jumpers and threes. They just don't have depth anymore. They don't have the depth to get it done, I don't think. Now, Phoenix doesn't have the depth either, but Phoenix can't miss right now. Like you said, the luck is going to run out at some point. It's so interesting. I think we got on the show the last time and just dunked all over Phoenix and hated on them and talked about whether they're going to make the playoffs or not. All they did is not lose since then, clinch a playoff spot. They've been second in net rating since Brittany Griner left. It really doesn't make any sense. But, the other thing, though, there was an article in The Athletic today. I think it was by Chantel Jennings. The other kind of event that coincided with this, people are pointing to, Griner left and Griner was having a down year, which she was. It's her first time in her career shooting below 50%, first time in her career averaging below 2 blocks a game. Kia Vaughn has been making those jumpers that Griner wasn't making when they leave her open from 15 feet. Those lanes are now open for Skylar Diggins Smith to get to the hole. All of those things are true. This run also coincided with Kobe Day when Diana Taurasi put on that number 8 Kobe jersey on August 23rd, Kobe's 42nd birthday. Ever since then, she's been going nuts. She's Kobe herself. She's been pulling up from 25, 26, 30 feet. She's had multiple 30-point games, I think, right, since then. Yes. Won their last 5. It's Mamba mentality.
It is. And I think she's like extra Mamba. She's not good. Like Kobe, love Kobe, but Kobe only did this when he was on some rough teams that didn't even make the playoffs. This play by Diana Taurasi has been phenomenal. I mean, she's helping her team win when taking these just really long 3-point shots in transition, popping off from everywhere. Skylar Diggins-Smith has also been fantastic, though, in fairness to Kobe, who did not have a teammate as good as Skylar Diggins-Smith on any of those bad Lakers teams. Skylar Diggins-Smith has been phenomenal. And like I mentioned, man, Brianna Turner is honestly one of the best centers in the league right now. She's futuristic. She does a lot of the things that you're seeing out of what you want in a modern big. She's doing the DHO stuff. She's attacking off the dribble. She takes some mid-rangers. And they did all of those things with Griner in the lineup. However, you also have to post up Brittany Griner because she's massive, and that's exactly what you want her to do. We obviously have no clue what's going on with Brittany, and we hope that everything's okay. But it just seemed like they were in a rut. They kept trying to a lot of the game was Skylar and Diana trying to get the ball in, and I think Richard Cohen talked about this in the W Dozen. It's like it's hard work to figure out the right angle for a post entry pass, and that takes time off the clock. And then your 3-point shots are coming with like 2 seconds left in the shot clock, and it kind of sucks your offense a little bit. And that's not like a shot at Brittany Griner. It's just like the reality of the situation. Then teams are doubling down on her. So to me, they're just playing more free. They're playing more fun. They don't have time to think. Diana has talked about this. Like, we don't have time to not be aggressive. We don't have time to change things. We don't have time to be tactical. If you are open, shoot the ball. If you're not open, pass the ball. Like, that's it. That's a decision tree. And when that's a decision tree, it makes it a lot easier to play basketball. So I'm really, really into what Phoenix is doing. A lot of unsustainable 3-point shooting. Even if that comes down a bit, though, I expect them to be really good. And again, like we said with Cheryl Reeve, like, how much do you want to see Diana Taurasi and Skylar Diggins-Smith in the playoff? I don't care if it's one game. I don't care what seeded they are. I don't want to see them. A healthy Diana Taurasi, a healthy Skylar Diggins-Smith in a game that matters, I don't want to play them. So I'm really excited by Phoenix, encouraged by their last few games. On Chicago, we'll see. I think they can get their stuff together a little bit more than you do. I'm not completely out on them. I think they can get their stuff together and figure out how to play. But just defensively, it's been such a tough run for them. So I think we're both on the side, though, that Phoenix can make a run in this playoffs, right?
Definitely, yeah. If you're, you don't want to be the 4 seed, I don't think. I think the Mercury are going to end up getting that 5 seed. Yep. And in the same way that you don't want to play the Aces if you're at the top of that group, if you're kind of in that middle, 3-4, where you have to play a single elimination game on day 2, you don't want it to be against the Mercury. And Brianna Turner, the other thing too is just, and I think you mentioned this in your article, if I remember correctly, her defense
it's been phenomenal.
It's been unbelievable. She's so much better. Again, this is not a shot at Brittany Griner. It's just she's 6'9". Turner has been so much better in ball screens. She can stay in front. Oftentimes people get by Brittany Griner, and sometimes when you're 6'9" and someone gets by you, you still block the shot because you have a foot on your person, and that's that's fine. It still works, but you don't get by Brianna Turner. She can move her feet and she's quick, and that's been their defense has been better since Brittany Griner left. Which she also again was having the worst year of her career, Brittany Griner. No disrespect to her. when it comes to Chicago, I don't know if you feel this way. There's two types of fans, right? There's the type of sports fan, who thinks that their team is like the best team ever, the best thing since sliced bread, even if they're like 11th out of 12. Like, yeah, my team could still win the championship. And then there's the fan whose team is like probably going to win the championship, and they're still skeptical because they don't want to believe until it happens, and there's the two. I think I lean more towards that second way. So I might be, not giving them enough credit. I would love to see them make a run, honestly.
Absolute. That's the best argument I have is like they have an MVP candidate who's playing great basketball both ways, by the way. She's not just doing it offense. She's been really good defensively. Before we get into the race for the 8 seed, though, I did want to mention my favorite stat, that over the last 5 games, if Brianna Turner was a team unto herself, she would rank 3rd in blocks in the last 5 games, behind the New York Liberty and her own Phoenix Mercury. That's how many blocks she has had in the last 5 games. So really impressive stuff. But let's get into, I don't think this is the most interesting race. I think the most interesting race is at the top. I think this is the craziest race, though, just from a perspective of any of these teams could win it, and pretty much all of them have the same chance at it for the 8 seed. Dallas is sitting at 6-12 right now. Their remaining schedule is Sunday against Washington, which is a massive game tomorrow. Absolutely tune into that because that's a massive, massive game. Wednesday, they play Seattle. Friday, they play Chicago. Then next Sunday, they play New York. Indiana's at 5-13. They play Connecticut today. Tuesday, Las Vegas. Thursday, New York. Saturday, Minnesota. Tough breaks for them to have to end the season like that. Atlanta is at 5-13 as well. They play Las Vegas today, Chicago on Wednesday, Connecticut on Friday, and then finish up the season next Sunday against Washington in what could be a game to get into the playoffs. So a single elimination game at the end of the season. And then Washington, as we mentioned, tomorrow against Dallas, Tuesday against Minnesota, Thursday against LA, Sunday against Atlanta. So with those schedules in mind, it would seem to me that all of these teams have a similarly tough way to get to the 8 seed. I don't think anyone really has, they all have to play really good teams here towards the end of the season. So who of these teams would you pick to get in? Let's hit that right off the top.
I think it's Dallas's spot to lose. They're a game and a half up right now. Obviously, you said they do play Washington next. If they drop that game, they'll be all right back in the thick with each other. Dallas is also 4-1 against the rest of this group, with that last game against them coming against Washington. So they're going to be our worst 4-2 if it comes down to a head-to-head tiebreaker among 2, 3, or even all 4 teams, which it very well could. Dallas is going to have an advantage in that. If Dallas can be tied going into that last weekend, Saturday, Sunday, they play the Liberty. The Fever play, remind me who the Fever play? The Lynx?
On next Saturday, yeah.
Yep, the Fever play the Lynx. And Washington has 2 games, a game on Saturday and Sunday. They have a back-to-back, I believe.
No, they have a game on, unless I'm missing something here. They have a game on Thursday, then Sunday.
Who has the back-to-backs, Saturday, Sunday?
In this group, no one.
In this group, no one. All right. I'm wrong about that. My bad. Anyway.
Tough to keep track of. No, you're right. No, you are right. Next Saturday, on the 12th, Washington plays New York, which I did not write down. That's my bad. So they play New York, and then they play Atlanta in the last 2 games.
So they do play Saturday, Sunday, last 2 days of the season.
Yes, I didn't write that down. Right. So I was wrong. My sheet was wrong.
I feel vindicated. Anyway, so if Dallas is at least tied for this spot going into those final 2 days, I think they're in good shape.
I think so too. They have to win on Sunday though. That game tomorrow, it's not a make or break for Washington, because then Washington still needs to pick up another game somewhere. But if Dallas wins that game on Sunday, they have a very, very good chance of getting in as long as they beat New York in the last game of the season. To me, I'm eliminating Indiana. I don't think they have the juice, and they have a really tough schedule against teams that are all going to be playing for something that matters. Because I think Minnesota's probably going to be jockeying for the 3 or 4 spot at least next Saturday. And I think, Atlanta, any of these teams can get in, man. Any of these teams to get in. I believe that all of them have a good chance, not only to get in, but to make a little bit of noise. If you're the 5th seed, because remember how this shakes out, the 6 and 7 seeds will play in the first single elimination game. 5 and 8 play each other in that first single elimination round. So if you're the 5th seed, which one of these 8 seeds would you want to see the least? Let's do it that way. Which one of these 8 seeds would you want to see the least?
It depends on health, but if you assume that everyone who's in the bubble is on the court, I don't want to see Washington.
I don't want to see Washington either.
I don't want to see Washington. They've, for the most part, they have some new faces this year who didn't play last year. Kiera Leslie, Shug Sutton, obviously. For the most part, though, these players were part of that championship run last year still. Ariel Atkins, Maisha Hines-Allen was not a big rotation piece last year, but she was part of that team. Emma Miesemann, obviously. They have experience. They've been in these playoff situations before. I think you want to face someone with a bunch of young people who have never been into the playoffs before. A team like the Wings, a team like the Fever, if you're that 5 seed.
The way I'd rank it is teams I least want to play is Washington, because of what you mentioned, championship pedigree, really good coach, people who have been there. I don't want to play them. I don't care. I understand they haven't been that good, but I don't want to play them. Atlanta is second on that list because of Courtney Williams and Shakina Strickland. Players, again, they've been there. They understand what it is to win in a big game. And I'd argue that they're probably, for 2020, the most talented team of this group. I love Dallas's ceiling and upside going forward, but I think for 2020, Atlanta has the most talent here. Then Dallas, because Dallas has Enrique. Enrique loves big games. It hasn't been the WNBA playoffs, but hey, big shot taker, big shot maker. And Enrique Iguodala, I don't want to see her. And then the Fever are last because they don't play defense. So they have a lot of really good players. Candace Dupree is amazing with championship pedigree as well, but I don't think they have the juice. I think a first-year head coach, Marianne Stanley, even though she's not really a first-year head coach, and I understand that, she hasn't fully established her culture yet. So that's how I would rank it. But yeah, let's get on to basketball. It's time. Just about to start is the Connecticut Sun versus the Indiana Fever. I've talked a lot of crap about the Indiana Fever today. Watch them win, going away, I'm sure. That's starting in just a minute on Facebook or League Pass. Again, I'm Gabe Ibrahim with Calvin Wetzel, Shay Jennings in the background doing all of the clicks and clacks to make us go. We really appreciate anyone who joined us, anyone who watched, and we'll be doing this again. The Her Hoop Stats happy hour, pregame, whatever. Come hang out with us next time we do this because it's been fun, and we absolutely love talking about this league. Have a great day, y'all, and enjoy some excellent basketball.